Hey folks, you've given your all, haven't you? You've bent over backward, shelved your priorities, pushed your own dreams aside, all for the sake of making them see your worth. You've done everything possible to be there for them, hoping they'd finally understand how much they mean to you. You've gone above and beyond, always on call, ready to drop everything at a moment's notice. You've been that person, the one who is always there, never saying no, never asking for anything in return. You've poured out kindness like an endless stream, just hoping that one day they'd see, they'd appreciate, they'd care. But what did you get in return? They treated you like a convenience, a footnote, an afterthought. They took every ounce of care you offered, every act of kindness, and discarded it without a second glance. They walked all over you, treating your loyalty and devotion as if they were obligations, not treasures. You tried everything to bridge that gap, talking it out, reasoning with them, maybe even begging for a shred of acknowledgement. But each attempt only left you feeling more invisible, like your value was something they were too blind, too careless, or too comfortable to see. You kept giving and giving, yet it only seemed to make you disappear more. It's like they became numb to your presence, indifferent to your heart, and the harder you tried, the less you seemed to matter. And then you realized it. Nothing was going to change. You had one option left, the most powerful card in your hand, silence. So you chose to fade away, to let the noise die down, and to stop filling their world with your presence. No more late-night texts, no more calls, no more little reminders that you were there. Waiting, hoping. It's like you vanished, leaving nothing but silence behind. And that silence, it's more deafening, more powerful than anything you could have said. Now they're grappling with a world without you, one where the constant warmth they took for granted has disappeared. They might try to act normal, putting on that brave, indifferent face in public, pretending nothing has changed. But inside that silence is tearing them apart. Each unfilled moment, each notification that doesn't pop up with your name, reminds them of what they threw away. Behind closed doors, they're haunted by your absence, by the void you left. They might even feel the urge to reach out, to call, to cry, but their pride holds them back, locking them in silent regret. They replay those moments, reliving the times they took you for granted, seeing every memory in a new light now that it's too late. They may be all smiles in public, but in private it's only darkness and the crushing realization of what they've lost. This silence, it's yours, your power, your way of reclaiming control. So take a moment to affirm this with me. Silence is my superpower. Say it out loud with conviction. Silence isn't a weakness. It's your strength, the loudest message you could ever send. They'll feel it, trust me. Because as the great philosopher Epictetus once said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This moment isn't about them. It's about you stepping into your own strength. So go on, declare it. Own it. Silence is my superpower, and stay with me here because we're only beginning. Stick around and I'll show you just how powerful silence can be. How it can turn the tables and force them to confront the emptiness they feel in your absence. We'll go deeper into this journey of silence. How it shifts the entire dynamic, makes them see the void they didn't know you filled, and leaves them wondering what they've let slip through their fingers. Silence. Now, before we go too far into their story, let's talk about something that might be weighing on you right now. I know you love them, probably still do in a way, despite all the hurt, despite the way they dismissed you like you were just a habit they could shake off. That love isn't easy to let go of, and because of it, there's probably a part of you wondering, what if they just move on? What if my silence means nothing to them? You're nodding along, aren't you? The fear of being forgotten, of them just brushing you aside, it feels like it's tearing you apart. But here's the thing, let me assure you, they're not going anywhere, at least not emotionally. You might see them wearing that mask, putting on a show like your silence doesn't faze them, like they're perfectly fine without you, but behind that mask, there's a storm brewing. They're feeling the absence of your presence more than they'll ever admit, even if they pretend not to care. This silence has sunk in deeper than anything words could have conveyed. And let's be real, if they can't see your worth in the silence, if they don't feel that loss, they never truly valued you in the first place. Do you really want someone who needs constant reminders to see your worth? Someone who only notices what they have when they're about to lose it? This silence isn't just a pause, it's a test, a moment of truth for both of you. If they're too blind to see your value even now, then their clarity is worth its weight in gold. Hold on to that truth. It's powerful. And so you continue. You stay grounded, letting them experience this absence. Trust me, they're already feeling it. If they don't, then that's your answer. But if they do, then they'll come to understand just how much you meant. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button, because this journey matters. It's not just about silence, it's about claiming your own power, your own worth, ready to dive deeper. Let's go, because now comes the part they'll feel most. The realization that you're truly gone. And here we are, at the beginning of that realization. This is where they feel the weight of your absence. Where it dawns on them that you're not there anymore, that you're out of reach. Maybe they're keeping up appearances, acting like nothing's changed, but deep down they feel it. That familiar warmth slipping away, unreachable now. Here's where most of us would make a mistake. We'd feel that pang of sympathy, that doubt creeping in. We'd think, maybe I should check in, just let them know I'm here. And then we'd reach out, cracking the silence, undoing the power of our absence. But let's be clear, that's a slip-up, one we can't afford. Silence is about letting them sit with their own thoughts, their own mistakes, their own emptiness. It's not about keeping them safe in the comfort of your presence. Every time you break the silence, you're handing back the power you worked so hard to claim. This isn't the time to check in, to let them feel your presence again. This is about giving them the space to truly understand what they had, to feel the full weight of it slipping away. And here's another trap some of us fall into. We think our job is to sit around, waiting, watching our phones, wondering if they've noticed. But that's not what silence is about. Silence is about redirecting all that energy you poured into them back into yourself. This isn't about putting your life on pause. It's about moving forward, building yourself up, growing stronger. Think of it as a transformation, an opportunity to become the kind of person who doesn't just sit around waiting, but actively shapes their own future. If they care, they care. If they love you, this absence will shake them. It'll make them see your worth in ways they never did before. Your silence is like a seed planted in the quiet, a seed that will either grow or wither. If they care, they'll feel the pull, the ache, the need to reach back to you. And if they don't, then let this silence reveal that truth now rather than later. Because the last thing you want is to be with someone who doesn't value you without constant reminders. As Seneca once said, if you want a true friend, break away from those who would not grieve to lose you. This is the power of silence. It reveals who truly values you and who doesn't. They're either grieving your absence or they're moving on. And either way, you win. You're finding out who's worth your time, your energy, your love. Imagine yourself standing tall, facing forward, not looking back. You're creating a life that's built on strength, on growth, not on the attention or validation of someone else. And as you continue, the right people, those who see your worth, will notice. Those who care will find a way to catch up. And if they don't, you'll know that walking away was the best decision you could have made. So here's an affirmation for this part of the journey. I choose myself over their attention. My silence is my strength. Say it out loud, write it down if you need to, and remember, this is just the beginning. Right now, we don't know if they truly value you, if they'll ever realize what they've lost, but that's not our concern. This silence is just the start, the beginning of uncovering the truth, and soon enough, the answers will reveal themselves. Hold on, because each step forward is a step toward clarity, and you're about to witness the true power of silence. And if they seem indifferent, don't be fooled. That's just a mask and act, but we'll get to that part next. Stick with me because there's much more to come on this journey. Alright, let's keep going. So you've chosen silence, and now the ripples are beginning. But here's where things can get tricky. The mask of indifference. This is the stage that throws so many of us off track, because it's when they act like they're perfectly fine, like nothing has changed, as if your absence is just another ordinary day. You might see them posting on social media, smiling with friends, maybe even talking as if they're doing better than ever. They'll seem calm, unbothered, as if your silence is nothing but background noise. But that mask of indifference, it's not the truth. It's a cover, a shield they're holding up to make you think they don't care. You see, when people feel a shift in control, when they realize they're no longer the center of your world, they put up defenses. They're bluffing, trying to make it seem like your absence is meaningless to them. Think of it like a poker game. They're holding their cards close, refusing to reveal any weakness, hoping you'll be the one to reach out first. They want to make you think they're unaffected, but that act of indifference is just that. An act, a mask hiding the truth of what they're really feeling. This is often when people fall into the trap. Seeing them appear so unaffected makes us question everything. We start thinking, maybe I should check in, maybe I was wrong, maybe they're actually fine without me. But here's the truth. Their indifference is part of the game. It's the first line of defense people use when they feel their control slipping. They're pretending they don't need you, trying to convince themselves as much as they're trying to convince you, as the wise Epictetus once said. Circumstances don't make the man, they reveal him. Your absence, your silence, is revealing something in them that they don't want to face. So instead of dealing with it, they wear this mask of indifference, hoping you'll crack, that you'll reach out, give them back that sense of security and control. Imagine it, a shield they're holding up to block their own feelings. Behind it they're hoping, praying you'll be the one to break first. This is when you have to hold your ground, because the moment you break, the second you reach out to see if they're really fine, you give them exactly what they wanted. It's like handing them the reins again, surrendering the power of your silence. Right now that silence is working on them, even if they refuse to show it. But it only works if you let it do its job. Once you give in, you're back to square one, and they know they've got you. Their indifference, it's just a flimsy wall, one they're hiding behind, hoping you won't see the cracks forming. Behind that mask, your absence is starting to press down on them, little by little. They might not even realize it yet, but they're beginning to feel it. That emptiness you left, it's settling in slowly but surely, and they're starting to realize that filling that void isn't as simple as pretending they don't care. They're in a silent panic, hoping you won't notice their vulnerability, their growing discomfort. It's a quiet struggle, but one that's building pressure with each day you stay silent. And here's where the real test begins for you. It's tempting to think silence is just waiting around, but that's only half of it. The power of silence is at its peak when you're not just waiting, but actively building yourself, growing, shaping your life. Instead of staring at your phone, wondering when they'll finally realize what they've lost, focus on yourself. Each day you put energy into your own growth, into your own life, is a day you get stronger. And that's something they'll feel. If they love you, this silence will draw out those feelings. The strength you're showing by staying silent, by growing instead of waiting, will become impossible for them to ignore. They'll feel it, even if they don't understand it right away. The mask of indifference will start to feel heavy, uncomfortable, like an outfit that no longer fits, and they'll find it harder and harder to pretend. They'll start to feel a pull, a desire to reach out to you, to reconnect, because your silence has become a force they can't overlook. But what if they don't care? What if the mask is all they have and there's nothing underneath? Well, then this silence is revealing that truth. If they're truly indifferent, if they can continue without you unfazed, then let it become clear now. That clarity is worth more than any false comfort. Because the last thing you need is to pour your energy, your love, into someone who can't value you unless you're right in front of them. As Marcus Aurelius said, it is not events that disturb people, it is their judgments concerning them. If they're unmoved by your absence, then let that judgment stand. Let it guide you forward, away from someone who doesn't see your worth. So here's your reminder. Stay focused on yourself. Let their mask of indifference be just that, a mask. Don't let it shake you. Don't let it pull you back. This is your time to build, to grow, to shape a life that doesn't hinge on someone else's attention. If they miss you, they'll come back in their own time, on their own terms. And if they don't, then they've freed up space in your life for someone who will truly value you. Affirm this to yourself. I am unshaken by their indifference. I am building my own strength and worth. Say it out loud, write it down, make it yours. Every time doubt creeps in, remind yourself of it. You're becoming stronger, more resilient every day. And let's stay connected on this journey, because the layers only get deeper from here. This mask of indifference won't hold up forever, and soon enough the truth will start seeping through in ways they can't ignore. There's a lot more to uncover, and we're just getting started. Now we enter a heavier stage, the weight of regret. At first they try to brush it off, hide their feelings. But now your silence is hitting them, really hitting them like a wave they can't escape. They start to see the emptiness. the void you left behind, and regret sneaks in like a shadow they can't shake. It's no longer about pretending they don't care. It's about realizing that maybe, just maybe, they've made a mistake they can't undo. Imagine them replaying every memory, every opportunity they had to appreciate you, every moment they brushed you aside. It's like standing on a cliff, looking back at everything they took for granted. They're haunted by those choices now, and they realize with a sinking feeling that each careless action, each time they disrespected you, is costing them more than they anticipated. As the philosopher Seneca put it, every new beginning comes beginning's end. Right now, they're feeling the end of what they had with you, and it's sinking in. They won't say it out loud, and they'll never admit it to anyone, but they're feeling the sting of losing something real. Regret doesn't announce itself. It seeps in quietly, slowly, like a shadow following them everywhere they go. And the longer you stay silent, the stronger it grows. This isn't about missing you, it's about recognizing that they had something valuable, something irreplaceable, and they let it slip through their fingers. Now, most people, when they reach this stage, try to push the regret away. They'll keep up their front, keep acting indifferent, but inside they're feeling the weight of their actions. They're thinking about every chance they had to treat you better, to keep you close, to value you, and each memory stings. They're wrestling with their pride, their guilt, the realization that they've lost control, and that loss is more painful than they imagined. This is where you might feel sympathy, you might feel the urge to reach out, to let them know you understand, to ease their pain. But remember, this is their journey, not yours. They need to feel this regret, this emptiness, to fully understand what they've lost. Stepping in now, even with good intentions, would only take away the weight of what they're experiencing. Regret has its place, and sometimes people need to sit with it, to feel its full weight, to understand the value of what they've lost. So take a deep breath and hold on to this affirmation. I am worth more than their regret. I choose myself over anyone's temporary feelings. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. You're not here to rescue them from the consequences of their actions. Their regret is theirs to carry, and your strength is yours to build. Stay with me on this path, because we're still only halfway there. Regret is powerful, but it's only the beginning of what they'll feel. Their journey doesn't stop here, and as the regret deepens, they're forced to confront even more truths they can no longer avoid. Hold tight, because there's still so much more to come, and the journey is far from over. And if you're still here, if you felt these words resonate with your own experience, take a moment to let me know where you're at on this journey. Have you taken that leap into silence, or are you still holding on, wrestling with doubts? Drop a keep it up in the comments if you're staying strong, because this journey is just as much about building yourself as it is about them realizing what they've lost. Stay tuned, because we're not done yet. The next phase is about facing the masks, the substitutes, and what happens when they try to fill the void you left behind. There's more to uncover, so let's keep going. Alright, let's keep moving deeper into this journey. So now they're feeling that weight of regret, but instead of facing it, instead of really sitting with that discomfort, they might try a shortcut. And what do? They start looking for someone new. They're hoping to fill the gap you left, to replace that presence with a quick fix. This stage can be hard for you to witness, especially if they're flaunting it, making it seem like they've moved on effortlessly, as if you were just another chapter they can flip through. But don't let it fool you. This isn't about moving on, it's about escaping. Imagine it like putting a bandage over a wound that runs deep. They're not healing, they're covering it up, hoping a new connection will numb the ache. They're looking for a distraction, for something, anything that makes them forget. But that's all it is. A distraction. The presence of someone else can't replace the presence they lost with you, and deep down they know it. They're using this person as a mask to avoid facing their own feelings, hoping that if they stay busy, if they keep moving, the emptiness you left won't catch up with them. This attempt to replace you is more of a coping mechanism than a real connection. They're trying to convince themselves, and maybe even you, that they're fine, that they're happy, that they've moved on. But real connection isn't something you can swap out like an accessory. It's not about finding someone new just to fill a void. When we lose something meaningful, our first instinct is often to find a substitute, something that fills the space without requiring us to change, to grow. But it's like trying to fit a puzzle piece that doesn't belong. It might look all right from a distance, but up close they can feel the emptiness it's covering up. They might go out more, post on social media, and show off their new connections as if they're living their best life. But remember, this isn't about you. It's about their inability to sit with their own discomfort. They're hiding behind this show, hoping to convince themselves that they've moved past you. But it's just that, a show. And the deeper truth, you can't replace something real with something temporary. They're putting up a front, hoping to shield themselves from the sting of regret. But inside, they're struggling with the emptiness that new faces and temporary distractions can't cure. Seeing this, you might start questioning your own worth. You might wonder if you meant anything at all, if it's that easy for them to replace you. But remember, this isn't a reflection of you. It's a reflection of their fear. They're afraid of facing the void you left behind. They're afraid of the silence. So instead of confronting it, they run to someone new, hoping that person can fill a space that only you once occupied. If you need an affirmation, keep this one close. I am irreplaceable. My value cannot be duplicated or substituted. Say it with conviction every time doubt tries to creep in. This journey is about uncovering the truth, and right now their actions are revealing that they're not ready to face it. Some people would rather cover their pain with a temporary fix than confront the real loss. They'll hide behind someone new, hoping the emptiness will fade, but it never truly does. And if they don't come to this realization on their own, then you'll know deep down they were never capable of valuing you fully in the first place. So you hold on to that affirmation. You remind yourself that their actions don't define your worth. If they're running to someone new, let that be their journey, their coping mechanism, their distraction. Because the truth of a real connection, it can't be swapped out. And every time they try, every time they look to someone else to fill the gap, they're reminded of what they lost. It's like trying to cover a wound without letting it heal, and no matter how much they try to ignore it, the ache of that emptiness will follow them. As the philosopher Alain de Botton once put it, people only get truly interesting when they start to rattle the bars of their cages. But instead of breaking free from the cage of their own denial, they're staying inside it, hoping that a new face will distract them from the truth. They're avoiding the discomfort, refusing to see the value of what they lost. And that's their journey to take, not yours. Now we're moving to a new phase, the unraveling. This is when things start to break down for them and reality begins to set in. At first they thought they could keep going as if nothing changed. But without the stability you provided, without the constant reassurance of your presence, their world starts to crack. You see, you weren't just someone who showed up. You were their anchor, their constant, the foundation they unknowingly leaned on. And now that foundation is gone, and the cracks are beginning to show. It's as if they're trying to hold water in their hands, but no matter how tightly they squeeze, it slips away. At this point, they may feel like they're holding things together, but beneath the surface there's no water. It's all coming undone. And the distractions they use to fill the void, they're starting to feel empty, meaningless. They're realizing that the world they created without you isn't as solid as they once thought. In the quiet moments, they start feeling that emptiness even more. Their friendships might start feeling hollow, or their daily routines lose their meaning. There's a sense of restlessness, a lack of focus, because they no longer have that sense of stability you brought into their life. You grounded them, even if they never appreciated it. And now they're lost, floating, trying to find their footing without that anchor. This is when they start to feel the full weight of their choices. When they're forced to confront the mess they created, their world is beginning to crumble piece by piece, and there's no distraction strong enough to keep the emptiness at bay. They start to feel as if something's missing, and that something was you. It's the quiet realization that the stability they once took for granted is gone, and they're left to face the consequences. It's easy to feel sympathy at this stage, to feel the urge to step back in and help, to be that support again. But remember, this is their journey. They need to experience this unraveling, this realization, without you swooping in to save them. This is the only way they'll understand the full weight of what they lost. Stepping in now would only take away the clarity they're starting to gain. Hold on to this affirmation. I am the stability they lost, but my strength is my own. Remind yourself of this whenever you feel the urge to help them, to ease their pain. They need to face this journey alone, to experience the reality of their actions without the safety net you once provided. This is your time to grow, to stand tall, to become stronger than ever. We're getting closer to the heart of this journey, And the truth is about to reveal itself even more. There's still more to come as they continue to feel the weight of your absence, as their world continues to crumble. So hold on, because this isn't over yet. The real understanding, the full impact of what they lost, is still waiting for them. And soon enough, they won't be able to ignore it. Stay tuned, because as they struggle in the silence, the final truths will begin to unfold, and their real feelings will come to the surface in ways they can't hide. Let's continue. Absolutely, let's bring this journey to its final stages. This is where the silence becomes a force they can no longer ignore. A void that keeps growing, a realization that finally sinks in. They've tried to mask it, to run from it, to distract themselves. But now all those defenses are fading, and they're left in silence. A silence that feels like a void, a hollow space that they can't fill. Imagine it like this. They're alone with nothing but the echo of your absence, and it's starting to become deafening. The connections they tried to create, the people they used as substitutes, the shows they put on to appear fine, none of it can touch the emptiness they feel now. There's no escaping the ache, the awareness that they had something precious, something irreplaceable, and they let it slip away. This void, it's not the loud, dramatic kind of pain. It's a quiet, relentless ache that only deepens with time. It's a reminder every single day of what they lost. At first, they thought they could just push past it, that it would fade. But now, each day without you brings them closer to a truth they can't ignore. They're struggling in a space where your presence once was. No matter where they turn, they're met with a sense of emptiness, a reminder of what they threw away. Picture them lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, with no messages lighting up their phone, no comforting reminder of your care. It's in these quiet moments, these still pauses, where they feel it the most. It's when they're alone, stripped of all the distractions, that the ache of your absence grows strongest. They might try to cover it up, keep busy, but this silence is everywhere, following them around. A constant reminder of what they let slip through their fingers. And here's where you might feel tempted to reach out, to ask if they're all right, to ease their pain just a bit. But remember, this silence is their journey, not yours. They need to feel this void fully to understand the weight of their choices without you stepping in. Saving them from this silence would only take away the lesson that they need to learn. If they truly cared, if they truly valued you, this silence is going to resonate with them. It's going to dig deep, stirring up feelings they tried to bury, feelings they can no longer ignore. If there was love there, real love, this void will push them to face it. They'll start to realize they lost something they can't find in anyone else. But if they don't care, if they can make it through this silence unaffected, then that clarity, that understanding is a gift to you. It shows you that they were never as invested as you were, and that freedom will allow you to move forward with full confidence. Hold on to this affirmation. My silence speaks of my strength and worth. Say it every time you feel tempted to reach out, to fill that void for them. Your silence isn't a weakness. It's a powerful choice. A decision to respect yourself enough to step back and let them face the reality of what they created. Now we're approaching the end, the breaking point. After all the masks, all the distractions, all the attempts to fill the void, they've arrived at a moment where they can no longer ignore the truth. They face a choice. Confront what they've lost, take responsibility, and grow, or stay trapped in denial, letting regret weigh them down indefinitely. For some, this is where the pain becomes overwhelming. They spiral, weighed down by guilt, by the loss of something they now realize was irreplaceable. They start to see that the regret, the emptiness, the ache isn't going away. It's a permanent feeling, a constant reminder of what they let go. Every attempt to move past it only brings them back to the same realization. They lost something real, something they'll never find again. Others, however, may choose a different path. They might finally see your absence as a wake-up call, as a moment of clarity. They're hit with the realization that maybe, just maybe, they have a chance to confront what they lost, to understand where they went wrong, to become a better version of themselves. It's like reaching a fork in the road. They can either let the regret consume them or use it as a moment of growth. This is where Marcus Aurelius' words ring true. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your silence was their obstacle, their wake-up call, forcing them to choose either to evolve or to remain stagnant. If they break through, it's because they've allowed themselves to learn from their mistakes. If they break down, it's because they're unwilling to face the truth of their own actions. And here's the beauty of this final stage. Whichever path they choose, you're no longer tied to it. You've done your part by stepping back, by letting them face their own reality. Their journey, their growth, or lack thereof is no longer your responsibility. You've given them the space to confront themselves, to grow, or to stay the same. But you've grown. You've reclaimed your strength, your worth, your independence. So for this final affirmation, take a deep breath and say, I am free now. You're stepping into a new chapter, one where your value isn't dependent on someone else's recognition, where your strength isn't defined by anyone's approval. You've come out of this journey with clarity, confidence, and a new understanding of your own worth. Whether they realize what they lost or not, you've gained something far more valuable: self-respect, strength, and independence. And as you move forward, you're free to create a life that reflects the true worth you've always held. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things. Thus death is nothing terrible, else it would have appeared so to Socrates. But the terror consists in our notion of death, that it is terrible. When therefore we are hindered or disturbed or grieved, let us never impute it to others, but to ourselves, that is, to our own views. It is the action of an uninstructed person to reproach others for his own misfortunes, of one entering upon instruction to reproach himself, and of one perfectly instructed to reproach neither others or himself. They lose the day in expectation of the night, and the night in fear of the dawn. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not care how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you have lived by. If there are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. If there are no gods, then you will be gone, but will have lived a noble life that will live on in the memories of your loved ones. If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient. For he that is so wants nothing. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. For what prevents us from saying that the happy life is to have a mind that is free, lofty, fearless and steadfast, a mind that is placed beyond the reach of fear, beyond the reach of desire, that counts virtue the only good, baseness the only evil, and all else but a worthless mass of things which come and go without increasing or diminishing the highest good, and neither subtracting any part from the happy life, nor add any part to it. A man thus grounded must, whether he wills or not, necessarily be attended by constant cheerfulness, and a joy that is deep and issues from deep within, since he finds delight in his own resources, and desires no joys greater than his inner joys. When someone wrongs you, ask yourself what made him do it. Once you understand his concept of good and evil, you'll feel sorry for him and cease to either be amazed or angry. If his concept is similar to yours, then you will be bound to forgive him, since you would have acted as he did in similar circumstances. But if you do not share his ideas of good and evil, then you should find it easier to overlook the wrongs of someone who is confused and in a moral muddle. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. He can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed by him. Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself. Don't seek to have events happen as you wish. Learn but wish them to happen as they do happen, and all will be well with you. God has entrusted me with myself. No man is free who is not master of himself. A man should live so that his happiness shall depend as little as possible on external things. Know you not that a good man does nothing for appearance sake, but for the sake of having done right? If you live in harmony with nature, you will never be poor. If you live according to what others think, you will never be rich. All cruelty springs from weakness. Nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. A gift consists not in what is done or given, but in the intention of the giver or doer. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. Of how much time has already gone by, you take no heed. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day which you bestow on some person or thing is perhaps your last. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself to make it just and holy. Begin each day by telling yourself, I shall be met with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. All of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. But for my part, I have long perceived the nature of good and its nobility, the nature of evil and its meanness, and also the nature of the culprit himself, who is my brother, not in the physical sense, but as a fellow creature similarly endowed with reason and a share of the divine. Therefore, none of those things can injure me, for nobody can implicate me in what is degrading, neither can I be angry with my brother or fall foul of him. For he and I were born to work together, like a man's 2 hands, feet or eyelids, or the upper and lower rows of his teeth. To obstruct each other is against nature's law, and what is irritation or aversion but a form of obstruction? If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. It seems to often do more harm than good to live in resentment and disdain for the world around us. The world we find ourselves in, its past and present, its people, and the rise and fall of its cultures and practices are all the way they are. They are not the way we personally want them to be. When we resist the reality of the world around us and instead project onto it our expectation about how the world should be, we are often met with a certain level of internal resistance that can cause us to suffer, and the greater the distance between reality and our expectation, the greater the resistance. The world is what it is. It is not what we expect it to be. Learn to accept life. Learn to love fate and all but it brings. This is the Stoic principle of amor fati, to love fate. After all, fate has given us the ability to live and to experience life. Unfortunately, amor fati often gets confused with a passive, defeatist acceptance of the world around us. To accept the wrongs of the world and to lie down as we observe the passing of things we don't agree with, or the wrongdoing we see being committed. But I believe this is a misunderstanding of the Stoic principle. Acceptance of reality does not mean to submit to it. It is simply learning the ability to see it objectively and accepting that in this moment that is the state of the world. It is the ability to look at the things around us clearly, not through the lens of our own bias and expectations. In doing so, we are better able to understand the situations around us, the reality of the situations we find ourselves in, unblinded by the lens of our own bias and expectations. We then are able to more clearly understand what is within our control and what is not, and then look to leverage that control to effect change first in ourselves, and then, if possible, in the world around us for the better. Whenever you feel anger towards a person, think of what led them to behave in such a way. It is all too easy for us to pass judgment from our own perspective, but it is a very different thing to try and put yourself in the shoes of the wrongdoer and try to understand what hardship they have gone through, what burden they might carry, or how life has treated them leading up to the moment which you found so offensive. Most people are trying to do the best they can with what they have, and while we all are responsible for our actions, there is often a line to draw between a person's experience and their behavior. To me, one of the great ironies of life is a man's desire to find comfort, to remove all sources of hardship and suffering in favor of comfort when applied to our core needs like food, shelter, security, and companionship. Comfort and stability to me do make sense, but when it exceeds to every corner of our lives, comfort and the removal of all hardship seems to me to bring with it its own brand of hardship. Instead of putting ourselves into the unknown, expanding our comfort zone and learning to deal with the adversity that comes with it, excessive comfort seems to risk the opposite. It erodes our resilience to hardship, can breed purposelessness, apathy, sloth, and the host of limitations that come with a shrinking comfort circle. It seems to me that one of the lesser thought of challenges of modern life is to balance the comfort that comes when our base needs are met with the voluntary hardship that is needed to make sure that comfort doesn't soften our resolve. The ancient Stoics advocated voluntary hardship. Marcus Aurelius chose to sleep on an uncomfortable bed. Seneca chose to swim in rivers in the dead of winter. Both men were all too aware of the risks of becoming too comfortable and the benefits of adding discomfort to one's life. Day to day, we often distance ourselves from death, often thinking that it is something that happens to others or to us many, many years from now. But the truth is that death is at our shoulder every day, an ever-present fact of life. Today may very well be your last. Living with this as a reminder brings with it a deep gratitude for many of the things we take for granted. Knowing that whatever it is may be one of the last few times we are able to experience it. Whether that be sound of leaves in the wind, the company of those we love, or simply the taste of good food. To the Stoics, this was the practice of memento mori, the practice of remembering death. The nature of life is changed from the very first shifts of the universe. The most simple of elements gathered together to produce clouds and then solid bodies. Bodies that began to form the very first ingredients for life. Those ingredients formed life, the circle of birth and death, until eventually they came together in the exact configuration needed to create you and me. Like the beginning, the peak, and the crashing end of a wave, our lives are simply part of a grander cycle. We are formed, we experience, and we end. And with our end comes the opportunity for the reconfiguration of our atoms, to allow another to come and go, and to enjoy the experience of life, and so on forever. The nature of the entire universe is change, from the very big to the very small. Lives are often not made better in the accomplishments of lofty goals or the collection of expensive things, so much as they are improved by the small day-to-day changes of one's habits, the decisions to wake up a little earlier, get out of the house a little more often, go for a run, read that book that's been gathering dust, or try to be more present in the company of the things and people we love. While of course great achievements do contribute to it, habits built over time, not short bursts of joy, are often the paving stones to a happier life. There is a delicate balance to be had when looking to the future and the past. The future is necessary for long-term planning and preparation for events that seem likely to happen. However, look too long towards the horizon, and it's easy to let life slip by and miss the very thing you've spent all that time planning and preparing for. Similarly, the past can be used as a tool to learn, but looking back to what was may also mean that you missed the life into which you've taken all the lessons of the past. The future can be used to plan and prepare. The past can be used to learn, but life only happens in the present. When I meet death, as we all must do, the time and place will be largely outside of my control. If tomorrow, then I will die tomorrow, and if a year from now or 20 years from now, then I will meet it then. It is in the very nature of a living thing to die, regardless of how much we resist it. However, for now I am alive. So I will put to use what is within my control and decide what to do with the time that is given to me. I am not soothing you or making light of your misfortune. If fate can be overcome by tears, let us bring tears to bear upon it. Let every day be passed in mourning, every night be spent in sorrow instead of sleep. Let your breast be torn by your own hands, your very face attacked by them, and every kind of cruelty be practiced by your grief, if it will profit you. But if the dead cannot be brought back to life, however much we may beat our breasts, if destiny remains fixed in immovable forever, not to be changed by any sorrow, however great, and death does not loose his hold on anything that he has once taken away, then let our futile grief be brought to an end. Let us then steer our own course, and no longer allow ourselves to be driven to leeward by the force of our misfortune. He is a sorry pilot who lets the waves wring his rudder from his grasp, who leaves the sails to fly loose and abandons the ship to the storm. But he who boldly grasps the helm and clings to it until the sea closes over him deserves praise. Even though he be shipwrecked, never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. There are misfortunes which strike the sage without incapacitating him, of course, such as physical pain, infirmity, the loss of friends or children, or the catastrophes of his country when it is devastated by war. I grant that he is sensitive to these things, for we do not impute to him the hardness of rock or of iron. There is no virtue in putting up with that which one does not feel. And they say that there is this difference between the mind of a foolish man and that of a wise man, that the foolish man thinks that such visions are in fact as dreadful and terrifying as they appear at the original impact of them on his mind. And by his assent he approves of such ideas as if they were rightly to be feared and confirms them. But the wise man, after being affected for a short time and slightly in his color and expression, does not assent, but retains the steadfastness and strength of the opinion which he has always had about visions of this kind, namely that they are in no wise to be feared, but excite terror by a false appearance and vain alarms. Don't you know life is like a military campaign? One must serve on watch, another in reconnaissance, another on the front line. So it is for us. Each person's life is a kind of battle, and a long and varied one too. You must keep watch like a soldier and do everything commanded. You have been stationed in a key post, not some lowly place, and not for a short time, but for life. Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. The chief task in life is simply this, to identify in separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself, which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own. One ought to seek out virtue for its own sake, without being influenced by fear or hope, or by any external influence. Moreover, that in that does happiness consist. What is your art? To be good, and how is this accomplished well, except by general principles, some about the nature of the universe, and others about the proper constitution of man? In our control is the most beautiful and important thing, the thing because of which even the God himself is happy, namely the proper use of our impressions. We must concern ourselves absolutely with the things that are under our control, and entrust the things not in our control to the universe. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the principles and notions which they form concerning things. It is the act of an ill-instructed man to blame others for his own bad condition. It is the act of one who has begun to be instructed to lay the blame on himself, and of one whose instruction is completed neither to blame another nor himself. One who knows not who he is and to what end he was born, what kind of world is this, and with whom he is associated therein. One who cannot distinguish good and evil, beauty and foulness, truth and falsehood, will never follow reason in shaping his desires and impulses and repulsions. Nor yet in assent, denial, or suspension of judgment, but will in one word go about deaf and blind, thinking himself to be somewhat when he is in truth of no account. Is there anything new in all this? Is not this ignorance the cause of all the mistakes and mischances of men since the human race began? We are all chained to fortune. The chain of one is made of gold and wide, while that of another is short and rusty. But what difference does it make? The same prison surrounds all of us, and even those who have bound others are bound themselves. Unless perchance you think that a chain on the left side is lighter, honors bind one man, wealth another. Nobility oppresses some, humility others. Some are held in subjection by an external power, while others obey the tyrant within. Banishments keep some in place, the priesthood others. All life is slavery. Therefore each one must accustom himself to his own condition and complain about it as little as possible, and lay hold to whatever good is to be found near him. Nothing is so bitter that a calm mind cannot find comfort in it. Small tablets, because of the writer's skill, have often served for many purposes, and a clever arrangement has often made a very narrow piece of land habitable. Apply reason to difficulties. Harsh circumstances can be softened, narrow limits can be widened, and burdensome things can be made to press less severely on those who bear them cleverly. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. These reasonings are unconnected. I am richer than you, therefore I am better. I am more eloquent than you, therefore I am better. The connection is rather this: I am richer than you, therefore my property is greater than yours. I am more eloquent than you, therefore my style is better than yours. But you, after all, are neither property nor style. If you have given way to anger, be sure that over and above the evil involved therein, you have strengthened the habit and added fuel to the fire. If overcome by a temptation of the flesh, do not reckon it a single defeat, but that you have also strengthened your dissolute habits. Habits and faculties are necessarily affected by the corresponding acts. One who has had fever, even when it has left him, is not in the same condition of health as before, unless indeed his cure is complete. Something of the same sort is true also of diseases of the mind. Behind there remains a legacy of traces and of blisters, and unless these are effectually erased, subsequent blows on the same spot will produce no longer mere blisters but sores. If you do not wish to be prone to anger, do not feed the habit. Give it nothing which may tend to its increase. At first, keep quiet and count the days when you are not angry. I used to be angry every day, then every other day, next every 2, next every 3 days. And if you succeed in passing 30 days, sacrifice to the gods in thanksgiving. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do? Or is this what I was created for, to huddle under the blankets and stay warm? Until we have begun to go without them, we fail to realize how unnecessary many things are. We've been using them not because we needed them, but because we had them. If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential, what the logos of a social being requires, and in the requisite way, which brings a double satisfaction to do less better. Because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Riches are a cause of evil. Not because of themselves they do any evil, but because they goad men on so that they are ready to do evil. In general, any method of discipline applied to the body which tends to modify its desires or repulsions are good for ascetic ends. But if done for display, they betray at once a man who keeps an eye on outward show, who has an ulterior purpose, and is looking for spectators to shout, "Oh, what a great man!" This is why Apollonius so well said, if you are bent upon a little private discipline, wait till you're choking with heat one day, then take a mouthful of cold water and spit it out again and tell no man. What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bees. A commitment to justice in your own acts, which means thought and action resulting in the common good, what you were born to do. Men do not care how nobly they live, but only how long. Although it is within the reach of every man to live nobly, but within no man's power to live long. He who is running a race ought to endeavor and strive to the utmost of his ability to come off victor, but it is utterly wrong for him to trip up his competitor or to push him aside. So in life it is not unfair for one to seek for himself what may accrue to his benefit, but it is not right to take it from another. For mankind, evil is injustice and cruelty and indifference to a neighbor's trouble, while virtue is brotherly love and goodness and justice and beneficence and concern for the welfare of your neighbor. The courageous in exile or at home is fearless in the face of all such threats. For that reason they've the courage to say what they think equally at home or in exile. Philosophy does not promise to secure anything external for a man, otherwise it would be admitting something that lies beyond its proper subject matter. For as the material of the carpenter is wood, and that of statuary bronze, so the subject matter of the art of living is each person's own life. My advice is really this: what we hear the philosophers saying and what we find in their writings should be applied in our pursuit of the happy life. We should hunt out the helpful pieces of teaching and the spirited and noble-minded sayings which are capable of immediate practical application, not far-fetched or archaic expressions or extravagant metaphors and figures of speech, and learn them so well that the words become works. No one to my mind lets humanity down quite so much as those who study philosophy as if it were a sort of commercial skill, and then proceeds to live in a quite different manner to the one they tell other people to live. It does not matter what you bear, but how you bear it. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil, not two uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient, for he that is so wants nothing. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective. I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone. If you accomplish something good with hard work, the labor passes quickly, but the good endures. If you do something shameful in pursuit of pleasure, the pleasure passes quickly, but the shame endures. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have. You will earn the respect of all if you begin by earning the respect of yourself. Don't expect to encourage good deeds in people conscious of your own misdeeds. The greatest discovery of any generation is that a human can alter his life by altering his attitude. Excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intentions, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Man conquers the world by conquering himself. How does it help to make troubles heavier by bemoaning them? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. You should live in such a way that there is nothing which you could not as easily tell your enemy as keep to yourself. Waking up to who you are requires letting go of who you imagine yourself to be. The high-minded man must care more for the truth than for what people think. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we say. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Don't promise twice what you can do once. A man who has committed a mistake and doesn't correct it is committing another mistake. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. Remember 2 things. 1, that everything has always been the same and keeps recurring, and it makes no difference whether you see the same things recur in 100 years or 200 or in an infinite period. 2, that the longest lived and those who will die soonest lose the same thing. The present is all they can give up, since that is all you have, and what you do not have you cannot lose. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather he must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. To life he can only respond by being responsible. No amount of anxiety makes any difference to anything that is going to happen. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Nothing, to my way of thinking, is a better proof of a well-ordered mind than a man's ability to stop just where he is and pass some time in his own company. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. All Hellenistic schools seem to define wisdom in approximately the same terms, first and foremost as a state of perfect peace of mind. From this viewpoint, philosophy appears as a remedy for human worries, anguish, and misery brought about for the cynics by social constraints and conventions, for the Epicureans by the quest for false pleasures, for the Stoics by the pursuit of pleasure and egotistic self-interest, and for the skeptics by false opinions. Whether or not they lay claim to the Socratic heritage, all Hellenistic philosophers agreed with Socrates that human beings are plunged into misery, anguish, and evil because they exist in ignorance. Evil is to be found not within things, but in the value judgments which people bring to bear upon things. People can therefore be cured of their ills only if they are persuaded to change their value judgments. And in this sense, all these philosophies wanted to be therapeutic. Simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and thoughts, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. compassionate towards yourself. You reconcile all beings in the world. Taoism is the art of being in the world, for it deals with the present ourselves. It is in us that God meets with nature, and yesterday parts from tomorrow. The present is the moving infinity, the legitimate sphere of the relative. Relativity seeks adjustment. Adjustment is art. The art of life lies in a constant readjustment to our surroundings. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Let your eyes see what they see, not what others want you to see. Let your ears hear what they naturally hear, not what others want you to hear. Let your mouth speak your mind freely, and not be constrained by other people's approval or disapproval. Let your mind think what it wants to think, and not let other people's demands dictate your thoughts. If your senses and your mind are not allowed to do what they want to do naturally, you are denying them their rights. When you cannot think, sense, feel, or act freely, then your body and mind are injured. Break these oppressions and you will cultivate life. Be careful what you water your dreams with. Water them with worry and fear, and you will produce weeds that choke the life from your dreams. Water them with optimism and solutions, and you will cultivate success. Always be on the lookout for ways to turn a problem into an opportunity for success. Always be on the lookout for ways to nurture your dream. Strength should always be complemented by softness. If you resist too much, you will break. Thus, the strong person knows when to use strength and when to yield. And good fortune and disaster depend on whether you know how and when to yield. Those who do not know how to suffer are the worst off. There are times when the only thing we can do is to bear our troubles until a better day. To solve a problem, you need to remove the cause, not the symptom. To know and to think we know not is the crown. To not know and to think we know is the affliction. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. If a branch is too rigid, it will break. Resist and you will perish. Know how to yield and you will survive. Only he who has no use for the empire is fit to be entrusted with it. At the center of your being you have the answer. You know who you are and you know what you want. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward into whatever way they like. Kindness in words creates confidence. Kindness in thinking creates profoundness. Kindness in giving creates love. A person with a mind is bound to be filled with conceptions. These conceptions prevent him from knowing things directly, so a person with a mind shall never really know. Trying to explain Zen is like trying to catch wind in a box. The moment you close the lid, it ceases to be wind and in time becomes stagnant air. A good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent on arriving. When you are content to simply be yourself and don't compare or compete, everyone will respect you. The fact is that those who do not see themselves, but who see others, who fail to get a grasp of themselves, but who grasp others, take possessions of what others have but fail to possess themselves. They are attracted to what others enjoy, but fail to find enjoyment in themselves. If you play a game where scrap pieces of glass are at stake, you will play skillfully. If your expensive belt buckle is at stake, you'll start to get clumsy. If it's your money that's at stake, you'll fumble. It's not that you've lost your skill, it's because you're so flustered by things happening outside. That you've lost your calmness inside, lose your stillness, and you will fail in everything you do. A man with outward courage dares to die. A man with inner courage dares to live. A man like this will not go where he has no will to go, will not do what he has no mind to do. Though the world might praise him and say he had really found something, he would look unconcerned and never turn his head. Though the world might condemn him and say he has lost something, he would look serene and pay no heed. The praise and blame of the world are no loss or gain to him. Things joined by profit, when pressed by misfortune and danger, will cast each other aside. Let your mind wander in simplicity. Blend your spirit with the vastness, follow along with things the way they are, and make no room for personal views. Then the world will be governed. A beam or pillar can be used to batter down a city wall, but it is no good for stopping up a little hole. This refers to a difference in function. Thoroughbreds like Kiji or Huoli could gallop 1,000 li in one day, but when it came to catching rats, they were no match for the wildcat or the weasel. This refers to a difference in skill. The horned owl catches fleas at night and can spot the tip of a hair. But when daylight comes, no matter how wide it opens its eyes, it cannot see a mound or a hill. This refers to a difference in nature. Now do you say that you are going to make right your master and do away with wrong, or make order your master and do away with disorder? If you do, then you have not understood the principle of heaven and earth, or the nature of the 10,000 things. This is like saying that you are going to make heaven your master and do away with earth, or make yin your master and do away with yang. Obviously, it is impossible. We may be floating on Tao, but there is nothing wrong with steering. If Tao is like a river, it is certainly good to know where the rocks are. Great power is worry and total power is boredom, such that even God renounces it and pretends instead that he is people and fish and insects and plants, the myth of the king who goes wandering among his subjects in disguise. Travel is such a wonderful experience, especially when you forget you are traveling, then you will enjoy whatever you see and do. Those who look into themselves when they travel will not think about what they see. In fact, there is no distinction between the viewer and the scene. You experience everything with the totality of yourself, so that every blade of grass, every mountain, every lake is alive and is a part of you when there is no division between you and what is other. This is the ultimate experience of traveling. To attain knowledge, add things every day. To attain wisdom, remove things every day. The blank canvas stares back at you. The cursor blinks on an empty screen. The guitar sits untouched in the corner of the room. You want to create something extraordinary, something that will inspire or move others, but doubt whispers in your ear. What if it's not good enough? What if I can't even begin? These moments of creative struggle are all too familiar even to the most talented and experienced creators. Imagine a painter overwhelmed by the sheer possibilities of the first stroke, a writer paralyzed by fear of judgment, or a musician weighed down by the pressure to outperform their last piece. Creativity, while beautiful, can often feel like a battle, one where the greatest challenge lies not in the work itself, but within the mind. But what if you could approach creativity differently? What if, instead of battling doubt and frustration, you could harness the power of ancient wisdom to find clarity, focus, and freedom in the creative process? This is where Stoicism, a philosophy rooted in virtue, reason, and resilience, can transform how you think about creating. 10 Stoic secrets that can help unleash your creative genius. Whether you're a writer, artist, entrepreneur, or simply someone seeking to think more innovatively, these timeless principles will guide you through the obstacles of self-doubt, perfectionism, and fear. Let's begin with the foundation of creativity, understanding the challenges and how Stoicism can help us overcome them. 1. The creative struggle. Understanding the challenges. Creativity is often romanticized as a mystical process, an effortless flow of inspiration and ideas. But for anyone who's ever tried to create, the reality is much more complicated. The blank page can feel daunting. Doubts creep in, whispering that your work won't measure up. Frustration builds when progress is slow or when the final result doesn't match your vision. And then there's the ever-present fear of failure, of putting yourself out there only to face criticism or rejection. These challenges aren't just obstacles. They can feel like insurmountable walls. Creativity requires vulnerability, and vulnerability invites fear. Whether you're a painter struggling to bring a concept to life, a writer grappling with an elusive plot, or an entrepreneur stuck in a loop of indecision, the battle often isn't with the work itself, but with the mind. David Hume, a philosopher of a different era, famously said, "A wise man proportions his belief to the evidence." Yet in moments of creative struggle, the evidence often skews towards self-doubt. What if I'm not good enough? What if no one cares? This mental chatter clouds judgment and stifles the flow of ideas. The Stoics understood these mental battles long before creative blocks became a term. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, the barriers to creativity are often self-imposed. The fear of failure, the frustration of slow progress, the desire for perfection, these are constructs of the mind, not the reality of the creative process. Understanding these challenges is the first step to overcoming them. Start by acknowledging that self-doubt, frustration, and fear are normal parts of creativity. They don't mean you're untalented or doomed to fail. They simply mean you're human. Creativity thrives not in the absence of these feelings, but in learning to navigate them. One of the most common challenges is the fear of starting. The blank canvas or screen can feel like a mirror reflecting all your insecurities. To combat this, adopt the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control. You can't guarantee that your work will be a masterpiece, but you can control the act of beginning. Marcus Aurelius advised, do every act of your life as though it were the last act of your life. Start small, take one step, and let the momentum build. Frustration is another frequent companion in the creative process. The idea in your head rarely translates perfectly onto the page, stage, or screen. Instead of resisting this frustration, embrace it as part of the journey. Seneca wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Frustration isn't a sign of failure. It's proof that you're pushing yourself and striving for something greater. Fear of failure often looms largest. It's the voice that says, don't bother. It's not worth the risk. But the Stoics teach that failure isn't something to avoid. It's a necessary step on the path to mastery. Epictetus said, he who is not thrown by setbacks will endure, but he who fears them is already defeated. Embrace the possibility of failure as a learning experience. Every misstep teaches you something valuable and brings you closer to success. Lastly, remember that creative struggles aren't unique to you. Every artist, writer, and creator has faced doubt, frustration, and fear. What separates those who succeed from those who give up is resilience, the ability to keep going despite the challenges. Creativity isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Ask yourself, what's holding me back right now? Is it fear, frustration, or doubt? How can I take one small step to move forward? By identifying the mental barriers you face and reframing them as opportunities for growth, you can transform the creative struggle into a powerful source of inspiration. As the Stoics remind us, it's not the challenges we face, but how we respond to them that defines our success. 2. What Stoicism can teach creatives. Creativity often feels like a chaotic process, fluctuating between bursts of inspiration and moments of doubt, frustration, or outright mental blocks. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, as though the creative journey is completely out of your control. But this is precisely where Stoicism, with its emphasis on reason, resilience, and clarity, becomes a powerful tool for creators. The philosophy offers timeless wisdom to help you navigate creative challenges and find balance amidst the unpredictability of the process. At its core, Stoicism is about living in harmony with virtue, reason, and nature. For a creative, this translates into aligning your work with your values, embracing challenges with a clear mind and focusing on what you can control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Creativity isn't about controlling outcomes or ensuring that every project is a success. It's about showing up, doing the work, and letting go of what's beyond your control. One of the most significant lessons Stoicism teaches creatives is emotional control. Emotions like fear, self-doubt, and frustration can derail your progress if left unchecked. Epictetus advised, don't let the force of an impression when it first hits you knock you off your feet. Just say to it, hold on a moment. Let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me put you to the test. This practice of pausing to evaluate your emotions is invaluable in the creative process. Instead of letting frustration over a stalled idea or fear of failure consume you, step back, observe the emotion, and choose a thoughtful response. Stoicism also emphasizes focusing on what is within your power, a principle that can transform how you approach creativity. As a creator, you can't control how your work will be received or whether it will succeed commercially. You can, however, control the effort you put into your craft, the time you dedicate to honing your skills, and the consistency with which you show up. By directing your energy toward these controllable aspects, you free yourself from the anxiety of external validation and concentrate on what truly matters, the process. Another Stoic principle, memento mori, remember that you will die, might seem morbid at first glance, but it's a profound motivator for creatives. The idea isn't to dwell on death, but to use it as a reminder to prioritize what's important. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." For creators, this means making the most of your time and using your talents to produce meaningful work rather than procrastinating or getting bogged down by perfectionism. Resilience, a cornerstone of Stoicism, is equally essential for creatives. The path of creativity is rarely smooth. There will be rejections, failures, and moments when inspiration feels out of reach. Seneca's words remind us, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Every setback you encounter is an opportunity to grow stronger and refine your craft. Instead of fearing failure, embrace it as a necessary step on the journey to mastery. Finally, Stoicism teaches the value of presence and mindfulness. Creativity thrives when you're fully immersed in the moment, free from distractions and mental clutter. The Stoics believed in focusing on the task at hand with undivided attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions." This principle encourages you to approach your creative work with intention and discipline, allowing ideas to flow naturally. Ask yourself, how can I apply Stoic principles to my creative process? What emotions or external factors am I allowing to distract me from my work? By incorporating Stoic wisdom into your approach to creativity, you'll find greater clarity, resilience, and focus. Creativity isn't about controlling everything. It's about mastering yourself and the process. When you align with these principles, you unlock the potential to create with purpose, passion, and freedom. 3. The connection between calm and creativity. Creativity flourishes in a calm mind. When your thoughts are scattered, anxiety takes over, or distractions pile up, your creative energy is stifled. The Stoics understood that tranquility isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity for clarity, focus, and meaningful action. For creatives, achieving inner calm can be the difference between struggling with ideas and unlocking your full creative potential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You can be happy if you know this. Some things are within your control and some things are not." This principle is the foundation of a calm mind. When you stop wasting energy on things you can't control, like the opinions of others, external pressures, or even fleeting emotions, you free yourself to focus on what truly matters, your craft. Why is calmness so essential for creativity? When your mind is calm, you're able to see ideas more clearly, make connections between them, and explore possibilities without the interference of stress or self-doubt. Anxiety, on the other hand, narrows your focus, causing you to fixate on fears or perceived limitations rather than solutions or opportunities. One of the most effective Stoic tools for cultivating calm is mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment. Creativity thrives when you're immersed in the process, whether you're sketching a design, brainstorming ideas, or refining a piece of writing. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." By focusing on the task at hand and letting go of distractions, you allow your mind to enter a state of flow where ideas come naturally and effortlessly. Another Stoic practice that promotes calm is reframing challenges. When faced with a creative block or frustrating setback, it's easy to let stress take over. Instead, apply the Stoic principle of amor fati, loving what happens. This doesn't mean you have to enjoy difficulties, but you can accept them as part of the process. Marcus Aurelius advised, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." A creative block, for example, isn't the end of the road. It's an opportunity to explore a new approach or dig deeper into your work. Reducing external distractions is also key to fostering calm and creativity. In today's world, constant notifications, deadlines, and noise compete for your attention. Create a space for your creativity that minimizes these distractions. A quiet room, a designated time free from interruptions, or even a simple ritual to signal that it's time to focus. This intentional separation from chaos allows your mind to settle and your ideas to flourish. Meditation is another tool that aligns with Stoic teachings and benefits creatives. Epictetus said, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours." These are inevitable parts of the creative journey, yet they often hold people back from sharing their work or taking risks. The Stoics remind us that we can't control others' judgments, only our response to them. Seneca wrote, "You have been put in charge of yourself. No one can harm you without your consent." Criticism isn't a reflection of your worth. It's simply someone else's perspective. Use it as a tool for growth and let go of the rest. The need to control outcomes is another obstacle in the creative process. The Stoics, you might have a clear vision of how a project should turn out, only to feel frustrated when the result doesn't match your expectations. The Stoic principle of amor fati, or love of fate, teaches us to embrace outcomes, whether they align with our plans or not. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." Creativity is an unpredictable process, and often unexpected results lead to new insights or directions. By accepting what unfolds, you remain open to possibility and innovation. Practical strategies can help you apply this principle. Start by identifying what's within your control in your creative process. For example, you can control your effort, your consistency, and your willingness to learn. Focus on these aspects and let go of the rest. If you're working on a project, remind yourself that the outcome isn't entirely in your hands. What you can control is the quality of your input. Another approach is to develop a mantra or affirmation that reinforces this mindset. Repeat phrases like, "I focus on what I can do today," or "I release what's beyond my control." These reminders can ground you when doubts or frustrations arise. Visualization is also a powerful tool. Imagine yourself completing a project with full effort regardless of the result. Picture how you'll feel knowing you gave it your best. Even if the reception isn't as you hoped, this practice helps you detach from the outcome and focus on the joy of creating. Finally, celebrate progress over perfection. Every small step you take, whether it's drafting a new idea, experimenting with a technique, or finishing a project, is a victory. By shifting your focus from the final product to the process itself, you create with greater freedom and satisfaction. Ask yourself, am I clinging to factors I can't control, or am I focusing on what's within my power? How can I let go of the need for validation and outcomes? The Stoics remind us that acceptance isn't about giving up. It's about redirecting your energy to where it matters most. By embracing this principle, you can navigate the creative process with resilience, clarity, and a sense of peace. 5. Cultivating resilience through Stoic philosophy. Resilience is the backbone of creativity, whether it's bouncing back from rejection, persevering through creative blocks, or finding the strength to keep going after a failure. Resilience allows you to face challenges without losing your momentum. David Goggins calls resilience the ability to stay in the fight, while the Stoics see it as the practice of enduring hardship with grace and strength. For creatives, cultivating resilience is about seeing every setback as an opportunity to grow stronger. Creative pursuits are often riddled with obstacles: a manuscript rejected by publishers, an art piece that doesn't resonate, or a performance met with criticism. These moments can feel deeply personal, even discouraging. But as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The Stoics teach that while we can't control external circumstances, we can control how we respond to them. Resilience begins with this mindset shift. The first step to cultivating resilience is reframing failure. In the Stoic view, failure is not an end, it's feedback. Epictetus said, "Difficulties are things that show a person what they are." Every rejection, every creative block, every misstep is a chance to learn something new about your craft or yourself. When you stop seeing failure as a verdict on your talent and start seeing it as a teacher, you strip it of its power to discourage you. Another critical element of resilience is persistence. Creative success rarely comes quickly. It's often the result of years of consistent effort. Seneca wrote, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden." Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel frustration or doubt. It means you don't let those feelings stop you. Show up every day, even when it feels difficult, and trust that your effort will pay off over time. Stoicism also emphasizes the importance of preparing for adversity. The practice of premeditatio malorum, or premeditation of evils, involves imagining potential challenges and visualizing how you'll handle them. For example, if you're preparing to pitch a project, think through the possibility of rejection. How will you respond constructively? By mentally rehearsing these scenarios, you build the emotional resilience to face them with confidence. Journaling is a powerful Stoic tool for building resilience. Writing about your challenges, feelings, and reactions helps you process them and gain perspective. When you experience a creative setback, use journaling to reflect. What went wrong? What did I learn? How can I improve next time? This practice turns obstacles into stepping stones for growth. Resilience also requires managing your emotions. It's natural to feel upset when things don't go as planned, but dwelling on those emotions can drain your energy. Marcus Aurelius advised you have to assemble your life yourself, action by action. Instead of fixating on what went wrong, focus on the next step you can take. This forward-thinking approach keeps you moving despite setbacks. A supportive community can also bolster resilience. Surround yourself with people who understand your creative journey and encourage you to keep going. Share your challenges with trusted mentors or peers. They may offer insights or simply remind you that you're not alone. The Stoics believed in the importance of relationships that uplift and strengthen us. As Seneca wrote, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Lastly, celebrate your small victories. Resilience isn't just about enduring hardship. It's about recognizing your progress along the way. Each time you overcome a challenge, no matter how minor, you build confidence in your ability to handle the next one. These moments reinforce your resilience and remind you of your growth. Ask yourself, how do I currently respond to creative setbacks? What practices can I adopt to strengthen my resilience? The Stoics and modern thinkers alike agree that resilience isn't a trait you're born with. It's a skill you can develop. By embracing challenges, reframing failure, and staying persistent, you'll cultivate the resilience needed to thrive in your creative journey. No setback is too great when you have the strength to rise again. 6. Stoic practices for creative inspiration. Creativity isn't always about waiting for a lightning bolt of inspiration. It's about cultivating habits and practices that clear mental clutter, spark fresh ideas, and keep your creative energy flowing. The Stoics, known for their disciplined approach to life, offer practical tools that align perfectly with the creative process. These practices help creatives stay grounded, overcome blocks, and unlock their full potential. As Seneca said, time discovers truth. The more they try to manipulate perceptions, the more apparent their dishonesty becomes. Their unwillingness to show vulnerability is a sign of their weakness, is another clear sign. Vulnerability requires courage. It means admitting you don't have all the answers or that you've made a mistake. For someone pretending to be perfect, this is unthinkable. They'll avoid difficult conversations, downplay their struggles, and refuse to ask for help, all to maintain their flawless image. But Stoicism celebrates vulnerability as a strength. Epictetus taught, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." By admitting our limitations, we open ourselves to growth and connection, something those who pretend to be perfect often miss out on. Number 5. They hide their true selves. Some people are like shapeshifters, constantly changing their behavior depending on who they're with or what they want. On the surface, they might seem adaptable or charming, but underneath it all they're hiding who they really are. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Pay attention to how someone behaves over time, not just the persona they project. They also have a habit of mirroring others to gain acceptance. For example, they might adopt your interests, mimic your mannerisms, or agree with everything you say to appear likable. While it can feel flattering at first, it eventually feels unsettling because it lacks sincerity. Stoicism reminds us that true connection comes from being real, not from pretending to be someone else. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Do not act as if you were going to live tens of years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." Life is too short for superficial connections built on deception. Number 6. They manipulate without guilt. Manipulation is one of the most unsettling traits someone can possess. It's not just the act of persuading others to do something, it's the calculated way manipulators twist emotions, situations, and even perceptions to get what they want. What makes it so insidious is that manipulators often do this without a shred of remorse. They don't care who gets hurt as long as their goals are achieved. For those of us striving to live authentically and ethically, encountering someone like this can feel disorienting and exhausting. Manipulators often rely on subtlety. Imagine someone who seems to always get their way, but when you look closer, you realize they've achieved this by making others feel guilty or responsible for their desires. For instance, they might say something like, "If you really cared about me, you'd do this," or "I guess I'll just figure it out on my own." It's not a direct demand, but it creates an emotional pressure that's hard to ignore. Stoicism offers a valuable perspective here. Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. Recognizing this manipulation allows you to regain your sense of freedom and choose your actions deliberately rather than being driven by guilt. Another tactic manipulators use is playing the victim. They present themselves as helpless or wrong to evoke sympathy and get others to act on their behalf. For example, they might recount a one-sided story about a conflict, painting themselves as completely innocent while exaggerating the faults of others. This draws people in, making them feel obligated to take the manipulator's side. From a Stoic standpoint, it's important to resist the urge to react emotionally to these stories. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." They act as if they're the center of the universe, and everyone else is merely a supporting character in their story. You might notice this entitlement in how they approach relationships. For example, they expect you to drop everything for them. But when you need their help, they're suddenly too busy or unavailable. It's as if their needs always outweigh yours. If you don't comply, they might act offended or try to guilt you, as if you're the one being unreasonable. Stoicism reminds us that relationships should be built on mutual respect and fairness. Seneca said, "We are waves of the same sea, leaves of the same tree, flowers of the same garden." True connection comes from recognizing equality, not exploiting others for personal gain. In a professional setting, entitlement can be even more glaring. Imagine working with someone who constantly demands credit for work they didn't do or expects special treatment just because of their title or connections. They might complain about not getting promotions or rewards while ignoring the effort others put in. This behavior creates tension and resentment because it undermines the shared effort that drives success. Stoicism teaches us to focus on our own contributions and not get caught up in comparisons. Marcus Aurelius advised, "Don't aspire to be on the best-dressed list. Aspire to be a person of virtue. Your worth is determined by your actions, not by the recognition others demand for themselves." Entitled people also tend to view rules and boundaries as obstacles rather than guidelines. For instance, they might cut in line, expect favors without reciprocation, or disregard policies that everyone else follows. To them, rules are for other people, not for someone as special as they believe themselves to be. This disregard for fairness can be infuriating, but Stoicism offers a way to handle it. Titus taught, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." While you can't control their sense of entitlement, you can choose how much power you let it have over your peace of mind. Their entitlement often comes with double standards. For example, they might demand forgiveness for their mistakes, but be unwilling to forgive others. Or they expect unwavering loyalty while offering none in return. This hypocrisy can leave you feeling frustrated and taken advantage of. Stoicism encourages us to rise above such behaviors by focusing on our own integrity. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Don't let their double standards pull you into the same cycle of selfishness and blame. Another hallmark of entitled people is their tendency to overreact when they don't get what they want. For example, imagine they ask for a favor that you can't fulfill. Instead of understanding your situation, they might lash out, sulk, or make you feel as though you've wronged them. It's as if the mere idea of being told no is unbearable for them. Stoic philosophy teaches us to maintain our composure in the face of such reactions. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." Stay calm, set boundaries, and don't let their tantrums dictate your decisions. Entitled individuals also lack gratitude, which is perhaps the most telling sign of their mindset. Even when they receive help or benefits, they treat it as something they were owed rather than a gesture of kindness. For instance, you might go out of your way to support them, and instead of thanking you, they barely acknowledge your effort or even expect more from you. Stoicism places immense value on gratitude as a key to happiness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you do not have, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess." Practicing gratitude not only helps you appreciate life, but also shields you from the entitlement of others. Number 8. They help only when it benefits them. Some people only offer help when there's something in it for them. At first it can be hard to notice, but over time you start to see a pattern. They'll step in when there's a clear personal gain, but when you need support, they suddenly become too busy or unavailable. It's as if their acts of kindness are just transactions. They help because it enhances their image, benefits them directly, or puts them in a position of power. This kind of self-interest can feel like a betrayal, especially when you realize that your well-being is only valuable to them when it serves their own goals. For instance, you might lend a hand to someone in need, only to find that when you're the one going through a tough time, they're nowhere to be found. They might offer excuses or just ignore your requests for help. It becomes clear that their help was more about building a favor bank for themselves than about genuine kindness. Stoicism teaches us to act with integrity regardless of whether there's a benefit to us. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, "Let not your mind run on what you lack as much as on what you have." True help comes from a place of selflessness, not self-interest. This transactional approach to helping others can extend to more subtle ways of manipulating situations. They might offer advice that seems helpful, but it's always with the caveat that you owe them something in return. For example, they might help you with a small task at work, but later expect you to cover for them or do something in exchange. Stoics value assistance that comes without strings attached. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Their help is an attempt to control the situation, but your power lies in choosing not to engage in that exchange. It's easy to get frustrated or even angry when you realize you're dealing with someone who only helps when it benefits them. But Stoicism encourages us to maintain our inner peace, no matter how selfish others might be. Instead of harboring resentment, focus on cultivating a generous spirit yourself without the need for anything in return. Seneca wrote, "No man can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility." Helping others is an opportunity to practice virtue, not a transaction to get something in return. Their behavior often creates a sense of imbalance in relationships. You may feel like you're constantly giving while they take, without ever offering anything that doesn't benefit them. For example, they might enjoy the perks of being your friend, but when it's time to offer support, they disappear. This imbalance can drain you emotionally, especially if you're someone who values mutual respect and reciprocity. In these situations, the Stoic approach would be to focus on what you can control, your own actions and responses, while accepting that some people may never offer the same level of kindness. Over time, this kind of behavior can lead you to re-evaluate your relationships. If you're always the one giving, and they're only helping when there's something in it for them, it's important to recognize the dynamic and protect your energy. Stoicism teaches us to protect our peace and not allow others to dictate the terms of our relationships. As Marcus Aurelius put it, when you have the opportunity to benefit another person, do so with sincerity and without expecting anything in return. True generosity comes from a place of inner strength, not out of a desire for reciprocity. Number 9, they have many enemies. People who have a trail of enemies in their wake often show us the consequences of their actions, even if they don't realize it. These individuals may present themselves as charming and friendly on the surface, but underneath they leave a path of damaged relationships, unspoken resentments, and unresolved conflicts. They may go on about how others have wronged them, or how they had to cut people off due to misunderstandings. But the truth is, when you consistently have problems with so many different people, the common denominator is usually you. These individuals often live in a world of blame. They accuse others of betrayal, but they never stop to ask why things keep falling apart around them. A friend of mine had someone in their life who was always pointing fingers at others for not understanding or supporting them. But when you looked closely, it was their own actions that were at the root of most conflicts. This person's inability to accept responsibility for their own part in things was a constant source of tension. Stoicism teaches us to take full responsibility for our actions, no matter how difficult it may be. As Epictetus said, we are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens to us. The moment we shift the focus to our own behavior, we regain control and clarity. People who have many enemies also tend to speak poorly about those they've fallen out with. Instead of reflecting on the situation, they trash-talk former friends, colleagues, or acquaintances. For example, you might hear someone constantly recounting how they've been wronged by every person they've ever worked with, or how no one ever understands them. This constant narrative of being the victim reflects a refusal to see things from other perspectives, and it often comes at the expense of their own growth. Stoicism reminds us to remain calm and composed in these situations. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Instead of engaging in their petty squabbles, take the higher road by practicing empathy and understanding, even if you don't agree with the person's behavior. One of the hardest things to do is to watch someone behave in a way that causes constant conflict, and then act surprised when they're isolated or surrounded by enemies. Their tendency to burn bridges can eventually lead to loneliness, and they may try to convince themselves that it's everyone else's fault. But in truth, their lack of self-reflection and their refusal to take responsibility for their actions are what perpetuate the cycle. In Stoicism, we are taught to focus on what is in our control, particularly our own actions. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It's easy to get caught up in someone else's narrative, but it's important to stay grounded in your own truth and not get lost in the drama they create. These individuals often fail to learn from their mistakes. They repeat the same patterns, burning bridges, speaking ill of others, and distancing themselves from anyone who challenges their behavior. And because they don't learn from past conflicts, they're doomed to repeat them. A family member of mine went through cycles of friend groups, only to end up alone time and time again. Every time they'd start a new relationship, whether professional or personal, the cycle would repeat. They'd create tension, become defensive, and then cut ties, convinced that everyone else was to blame. Stoicism teaches us that growth comes from self-examination, not from avoiding uncomfortable truths. As Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. By confronting our own mistakes, we can break free from cycles of conflict and start building healthier, more constructive relationships. Number 10. They thrive on hate. There are some people who seem to live in a constant state of anger and resentment. It's as if hatred fuels them, and without it, they wouldn't know who they are. These individuals often thrive in environments where negativity is rampant. They focus on flaws, criticize others endlessly, and can't seem to find anything good to say about anyone. Their minds are consumed by the faults and wrongs of others, and they take pride in pointing out imperfections wherever they see them. Ask yourself, does reacting with anger align with my values? What would the best version of myself do in this situation? By aligning your actions with your values, you ensure that your responses contribute to the person you aspire to be, rather than a momentary emotional state. Emotional acceptance is crucial too. This doesn't mean resigning yourself to feeling bad. It means accepting that you're feeling a certain way without judgment or immediate reaction. Acceptance allows you to understand your emotions better and manage them proactively. It's like observing the clouds as they pass by in the sky. Notice them, but don't get carried away by the storm. Each of these techniques isn't just about handling a particular emotional moment. They're about cultivating a life where you consistently choose actions that reflect your rational and reasoned decisions. Practicing these techniques regularly can turn them into habits, fundamentally changing how you interact with your emotions and the world. As you integrate these practices into your daily life, you'll find that not only do your emotional responses become more balanced, but your overall sense of well-being improves, allowing you to live more fully in alignment with your Stoic principles. Habit 5. Benefits of choosing actions over emotions. When we choose our actions consciously, aligning them with rational thought rather than fleeting emotions, we cultivate an inner stability that is apparent to those around us. This stability makes us more reliable and trustworthy. In personal relationships, this can deepen bonds as loved ones see us as pillars of strength, capable of supporting them emotionally rather than reacting impulsively to stressful situations. It means that in times of conflict or tension, instead of escalating the situation with emotional reactions, we contribute to resolving it, enhancing the quality and depth of our connections. Professionally, the ability to stay calm and collected under pressure is invaluable. In the workplace, emotions can run high, but the capacity to maintain composure sets leaders apart. This isn't about suppressing emotions, but rather managing responses in a way that is considered and constructive. Decisions made in this state are typically more strategic and thoughtful, leading to better outcomes and demonstrating a level of leadership that is respected and often emulated. Furthermore, choosing actions over emotions leads to personal resilience and mental toughness. The Stoics believed that our greatest trials are opportunities for growth. By facing challenges with a calm and composed demeanor, we train ourselves to handle future stresses with greater ease. This resilience can dramatically improve our overall well-being, reducing feelings of anxiety and depression, and increasing our life satisfaction. Essentially, we're not just reacting to life's challenges, we're actively shaping our journey through them. Another significant benefit is the development of self-awareness and self-regulation. These skills allow us to understand our emotional triggers and effectively manage them. This awareness then extends beyond ourselves, improving our empathy and understanding of others' emotions. With this enhanced perception, we can navigate social interactions more skillfully, adapting our responses to suit different situations and personalities. The practice of choosing actions over emotions equips us with tools not just to survive in our world, but to thrive. By embodying the principles of Stoicism, we don't just go through life. We grow through life, continually improving ourselves and positively impacting those around us. Habit 6. Overcoming challenges. Mastering your emotions and consistently choosing rational actions over impulsive reactions is no small feat. It's a profound challenge that requires dedication, patience, and resilience. In this journey, as Stoicism teaches us, we encounter numerous obstacles that test our resolve and our ability to apply philosophical principles to real-life situations. One of the first challenges many of us face is the intensity and immediacy of our emotional reactions. Emotions are powerful and can overwhelm even the most dedicated practitioners of Stoicism. They can surge quickly and unexpectedly, driven by deep-seated habits and instincts that have been reinforced over a lifetime. The key to overcoming this challenge isn't to suppress these emotions, but to acknowledge their presence without allowing them to dictate our actions. This requires a high level of self-awareness and the ability to pause and reflect in the heat of the moment, a skill that is cultivated through consistent practice and mindfulness. Another significant challenge is maintaining consistency in applying Stoic practices. It's one thing to remain calm and composed in a controlled environment, but it's entirely another to do so under stress in the face of adversity, or during an unexpected crisis. The Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, which involves visualizing and mentally preparing for potential difficulties, can be incredibly helpful here. This exercise strengthens our mental resilience by familiarizing us with adversity before it occurs, reducing the shock and discomfort when challenging situations inevitably arise. Furthermore, there's the challenge of skepticism, both internal and external. Internally, you might doubt whether Stoic principles can truly make a difference in the face of real-world problems. Externally, peers or societal norms might question or undervalue the importance of emotional regulation, viewing it as unnecessary or overly philosophical. Overcoming this skepticism involves demonstrating the practical benefits of Stoic practices, not only through words but through actions. As we embody the calm, rational, and resilient traits promoted by Stoicism, the effectiveness of these practices becomes apparent, not only to ourselves but also to others. Lastly, integrating Stoic practices into daily life poses its own set of challenges. The modern world is fast-paced and often emphasizes quick reactions and emotional expressions. To counter this, setting aside time each day for reflection, such as journaling or meditative practices, can anchor us in Stoic principles. This daily commitment turns abstract concepts into tangible actions, gradually weaving Stoicism into the fabric of our everyday lives. Overcoming these challenges requires a robust commitment to self-improvement and a deep understanding of Stoic philosophy. It's about embracing the process, knowing that each obstacle is an opportunity to practice and strengthen our Stoic virtues. By steadfastly applying these principles, we not only overcome the challenges, but also grow stronger and more capable with each step forward. Habit 7. Real-life applications. Consider a typical scenario at work. You've put your heart into a project, but during the presentation, a colleague interrupts with criticism that seems unfair. The immediate impulse might be to defend your work aggressively, allowing irritation or anger to dictate your response. However, applying Stoic principles, you could take a moment to pause, acknowledging your initial emotional response without acting on it. Instead of snapping back, you might then choose to address the criticism calmly, asking for specific feedback that could improve the project. This approach not only preserves professional relationships, but also enhances your reputation as someone who is composed and receptive to feedback, even under stress. Now imagine a personal situation such as a conflict with a partner or family member. Emotions can quickly escalate in familial settings, turning minor misunderstandings into major conflicts. A Stoic approach would involve recognizing the emotional triggers as they arise and consciously choosing to respond with understanding rather than reactivity. This might mean taking time to listen actively to the other person's concerns without immediately reacting or trying to solve the problem. Such a response promotes dialogue and understanding, helping to resolve conflicts in a way that strengthens relationships rather than weakening them. In another aspect of personal development, consider the challenge of self-discipline, such as maintaining a fitness routine or a diet. It's easy to give in to momentary impulses, skipping a workout because you feel tired or indulging in an unhealthy snack. Stoicism teaches us to focus on our long-term goals and values rather than short-term comforts. By applying Stoic discipline, you can remind yourself of the reasons behind your choices, reinforcing your willpower to act in accordance with your greater good rather than momentary desires. Moreover, Stoicism can profoundly impact our overall resilience and mental health. In times of crisis or sorrow, such as during a financial setback or the loss of a loved one, the Stoic practice of focusing on what we can control, our responses, our values, our actions, becomes invaluable. While it's natural to feel grief or stress, Stoicism helps us navigate these emotions without letting them overwhelm us.